You're listening to the WB Download, coming to you from Wheel & Builder's showroom in Studio 1C. We are a podcast centered around building custom homes, the customer experience of building a custom home, and a really entertaining listen from many great guests and interviews that may or may not have anything to do with building. I'm excited to share with you their voice and their stories that will enhance your idea of the custom builder world. Well, hello again, everybody. I'm Jeff Whelan, president of Wheel & Builders, here on the WB Download. Today is Tuesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everybody. Man, I tell you what, I feel like this is a milestone every year. You work so hard to get here. Now here we are. And it's just a relief. My Advent devotion every morning, we've been doing it since December 1st with a group of guys. And every day it talks about the woes of Christmas and how people are struggling and trying to make it through and on and on and on. And I'm like, man, I feel like Christmas has always been just a high-spirited, happy time for me, my family, for me anyway, I guess I can speak for, to friends gathering, people gathering, family gathering, eating dinner, buying gifts for the kids and other people. I think I say this all the time is I wish it was Christmas all year long, the way people treat each other around this time of the year. It's friendly and you do things a little bit nicer for people. And I try and carry that on. I know I don't do a good job of it, but I try and carry it on throughout the year. So Merry Christmas. Hopefully you're traveling and you have nothing better to do and you're listening to this podcast and enjoying life. So today we are going to recap the year and all of our guests and talk about all the cool things that we discovered with people. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what we have planned for next year and what we got going on. So it's been busy the last couple of weeks, as always, as my life is. But Cody and I went with my good friend Ryan Murphy, who's also our insurance agent, down to the Xavier game, Xavier Marquette, and that's really cool. Crazy thing is that I was there with Kevin Lynch and my best friend Josh Luther, probably 35 or 40 years ago, maybe, at the Cincinnati Gardens at the Xavier Marquette game. And it was really cool. But, and then Raina and I also went to the Nutcracker down at the museum, or not the museum, at the music hall in Cincinnati. And she and I had a little date night and went out to dinner. And it is so awesome to be able to do this stuff with these kids. I just love it. It's so much fun, so much fun. So another thing we did, we had our Christmas dinner for the company at the, they call it SOB, Son of Butcher, over in Liberty Town. I don't know what we call this, Liberty Town Mall, Liberty Town Center. And it was so good. The service was so good. The food was so good. Everybody had a great time. But it was just a great place to be, and just I just can't say enough good things about it, to be at Son of Butcher over in Liberty Township. So thank you, everybody over there. We also had our Home Builders Association annual Christmas dinner. They call it a holiday luncheon, but whatever. It's a Christmas luncheon. And my good friend Andre Frazier was sworn in. I swore him in as president of the 2025 Home Builders Association. And it's a really big honor to be able to do that for a friend. It means a lot to me because the Home Builders Association means a lot to me. It may not mean a lot to everybody else, but I was really honored that he asked me to do it, and really cool to be there. And it's always a time to get to see everybody and celebrate. And once again, Christmas. The other thing we did is Cody had, the kids had their steer weigh-in for the Warren County Fair, and that was on December the 14th. And what we did, what they do is they require you to have your market animal by that date, which means we have to take it up and get it checked in and weigh it. When we get to the fair, they will weigh it again, and then we do the daily rate of gain. They put a special tag in there to make sure that you can't switch it out. And I'm sure that somebody will figure out a way to cheat that system, but they've been going on for many, many years. The way we do this is weighing in Butler County and Warren County. I would imagine they do it across the state. And so it's kind of kind of a kickoff. We're like, all right, well, we're here. We know what we're doing, and we're excited, and then we start thinking about our feed rations and all the things we have to do, and our daily rate of gain. But not that we haven't been thinking about that, but now we're a little bit more concentrated on it. So our lineup for the county fair right now looks as this. We have a born and raised, which means we have a Otis. He's a market steer who was born on the farm, and so we can show him in a special class there. And then we have our show steer, which is the steer that we bought. These are both market animals, and they will be sold for freezer beef. And then we have a heifer, Patty, who is going to be going with us, just pulled her off the farm, and she hangs out with everybody. So we thought, well, let's put a halter on her and break her, and we'll take her with us. And then she'll come back to the farm. By the time we show her at the fair, she'll be bred and ready to have a baby next spring. And then Raina has both of her rabbits, Gucci and Louie. And then we are really, really hoping we have a cow that her name is Gemma, and she is due on Shannon's birthday, January the 11th, this year or next year. And when she has that calf, we want to take that calf as a feeder calf, which is a small calf that we would take to the fair. Raina can show it there and then bring it back home, and then maybe show it again next year or put it back into the breeding herd. So we've got a fleet heading. In the big time, they would call that a show string that we would take to the fair. But nonetheless, Raina's also got a bunch of special projects that she wants to do, which is like recipes and all kinds of things. And she's fired up about her 4-H club. So it's really cool to see the kids getting involved in it and taking responsibility, which is what they are supposed to do. That's what 4-H is meant to be there for. So I know that was long-winded, but it's a lot going on with those things. So we've had, of course, we have dry weather. We've got a ton of starts that we got to get in there, and then we get held up by the health departments and different government authorities. And then they call you up or send you an email and say, hey, your permit's ready to be picked up. And of course, we get rain for 3 weeks straight in areas where we don't need rain. So we opened up a hole last Wednesday, and we're just such geniuses about it. We open it up, and then we leave it sit there while it's 4 days without it raining. And then when it starts raining, we go, oh, man, we're going to put a footer in there, I guess. And then the footer guys can't be there. And then the county, as great as they are, pushed our inspection, and it's one excuse after another. And this is the way this business goes. Pisses me off every single day that this stuff happens, because it ends up making you look like a jackass. But either way, we've got that one to start. We've got 2 more to start, one down in Hamilton County, Indian Hill, and one out in Goshen. And then recently we also have this is a cool project, because we're going to talk about Mark and Sarah here in a little bit, our Homerama customers. But we are doing an in-law suite on the back of our Homerama house this year, and we just got our approval last week. 2 weeks ago, for the variance needed, because we exceeded the minimum or the maximum square footage. So we're getting ready to start that, and so we've got a lot of things moving and chucking and jiving, and man, I said it the other night at our Christmas dinner that I am so proud of this team that we have here at Wheelan Builders, and all the things all the hard work that everybody's doing to make this thing go around. And it's just been so awesome to see these people thrive and kick butt every single day. I'm grateful for them. And when you come in to talk about building the house with us, and people want to know, people, when they come to us, they know what we're all about, and they know which direction we're headed. But I tell them, hey, if there's any reason in this world that you should build a house with Wheelan Builders, it's our core values and it's our team. And those are the number one reasons, because these people are awesome, and we are all super interested in making sure that your house is the greatest and that your experience is the greatest. So really, really excited about that. So let's get in, let's roll on and talk about what we did this past year. So let's talk about our guest and recap what we did last year, but tell you a little bit about some exciting things that we have going on next year with the podcast, and how this thing's going to shape out. So our first guest of 2024 was none other than my man, Dan Geis, from Golden, Colorado, and it's Summit Ridge Custom Homes out there. Not oddly enough, we knew this was going to happen, but we were at Dan's place for our Builder 20 meeting in the fall of 2024, and we kicked off the year on the podcast with Dan back there in January. So we got to go out and see the whole operation. I'd been there the year before, but we didn't really dive into the operation as much as we did while we were there with the Builder 20 group. Dan and his wife, Courtney, his whole team are such wonderful people. They do an excellent job building houses, but beyond that, they're just great people. and that's what attracts me to them, and to be friends with them. And go beyond that, we got to spend a lot of time with his team while we were out there in the fall. And to see their operation, to see how things go, to see Dan, who's just like the Energizer Bunny, which is one of the guys in the group described him as, always happy, always positive, just kicking butt all the time. It was really neat. And to follow up with that, we had a couple of selection things. We're trying to get a better program all the time here at Wheeling Builders. So not Courtney, but Hannah, and oh my gosh, they're going to shoot me if I don't remember their name. But they all got on a call with us, and now I'm not going to be able to finish this episode without thinking of that girl's name. But they all got on a call with us and took us through their selections process, and it was so helpful. To me, it was anyway. Hopefully, we implement some of the things that happened on that phone call here, and they took a lot of time out of their day, and so that's what friends do. That's what team members do, and it's really, really cool to have that. So Dan was a great guest. We talked about, he does a lot of green building. He does a lot of really funky stuff on the hillsides, and just really, really cool stuff. So we discussed Dan and how his business is, how he got started, and what they're doing these days. So it was really cool. Thank you again, Dan, for being on the show. Our next guest was none other than Mark and Sarah Dizard. So Mark and Sarah were our Homerama customers for 2024. This is the second house that we built for them, and it was the third project we did for them because I went back and finished their basement on the house that we had already built for them. And so we talked about what it's like to be a homeowner, what it's like to go through the building experience with Wheeling Builders. And one thing that we did establish is that we are friends, because we weren't sure about that coming into the episode. We had to establish that during the episode, and we did. So the other cool thing is about Mark and Sarah. Not only that they're really, really cool people, but that we are getting ready to start another project with them. And this is an in-law suite that we are going to build on the back of the Homerama house that we did this year. So Sarah's mom and dad can move in with them. And that's going to be it's going to be a really, really tough project because now everything's finished and now we got to try and get in the backyard of this place. But it's a great honor to have that relationship with them, for them to have that trust in us, and to be able to continue to work with them. So we're grateful. But I really enjoyed that episode because it's such an honor to have customers come on the show and have a good, realistic conversation with them and let you all hear that. So that was really neat. Our next guest was none other than Pastor Will from Four Corners Church, Pastor Will Lavellet, and we established what his last name was after 4 or 5 years going to church there. Will is a really, really good friend of mine, but he's also a mentor of mine, and we have a great relationship. I shouldn't say of mine; it's of the relationship for both of us, I believe. And I just really enjoyed hearing his story, and I love listening to him anyway, talk about life and philosophy and direction, and to hear how things going at the church and just the way he lives his life, man. It's amazing to watch him roll. And he, again, is another Energizer Bunny that when I watch him and see what he does, I'm just like, man, I'm tired just watching him. So thank you again, Pastor Will, for being on the show. And I hope to have him back again so we can catch up and talk about other things. Me and him, we do that quite a bit. I'd like to get him back on the show. So then we jump into the next episode was Wheeland Wows. And these are things that we did inside our homes, on the outside of our homes, and just to kind of give people some ideas, to bring it back to building a little bit and to give some people some ideas of what we do. You can see these things on our website, but it was really neat for Leanne to put this together so we could go through and describe what each one was and what it was all about, and why we did it, and what the inspiration was behind it, and how it came together. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I did. I know it was kind of cool. To be able to, it's always cool it's like, yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did that. And then you go back and start diving into it and dissecting it. And you're like, man, that was really neat. I forgot all about that. So, the next episode, we are leading up to opening day, I believe. And we had, Craig Sample from the Cincinnati Reds on the show. Quite an honor for the Reds to allow him to come out here and for him to take time out of his day to come out here and be on the show with us and talk about what the Reds had in store and how the season was going to look. But it was also, one of the really cool things that I remember talking to Craig about is because Craig is our salesperson there. We are kind of a season ticket holder there. Not maxed out season ticket holder, which means we have like 20 games. But Craig said that the way he got started in that business was he went to a combine, so to speak, that was, if you want to work for the MLB in a baseball organization, I think he went to Indianapolis, he said, and he went up there and kind of interviewed with all these different teams and just happened to end up with the Reds, which was really cool. So once you get in with the Reds, I just know this about them guys, been around them enough down there, that they really take care of people and they, in the front office anyway. And once you're in there and once you're ready to work with them, they want you to move on. They want you to, they're like us. When they hire somebody, they're like, let's see what we can do to make sure that this person stays here and excels and succeeds. So that was really neat. I hope to do that again this year with Craig because we have a lot of cool things happening with the Cincinnati Reds this year. And one of the things that the Reds are doing is they're going down to Bristol Motor Speedway and playing the Braves in Bristol Motor Speedway down in Tennessee. That'll be really cool. And then we also have the Savannah Bananas coming to the Cincinnati Reds stadium here, Great American Ballpark. And we're going to talk about that and that kind of revolves around our float theme for the year of some of those things that are happening with the Reds throughout the year. So really appreciate Craig. Our next episode was talking about outdoor living, and I constantly am talking to customers about how the outdoor areas are lending themselves to be part of your square footage of the house, because we put these huge doors on the back of the house. We're making them covered porches. We're enclosing some of them. We're screening them in. And it allows for everybody to kind of meander in and out of the house. But man, it's not just a back porch. Years ago it was like a patio, and then it was a deck, and then it's a covered deck, but now it's just so much more. Fireplaces and fire pits and dinner tables out there and decking, and we do special things to the decking to where it creates another ceiling for the area below the deck, and it's just amazing. We carry the beams from the interior out to the exterior on some of these things. So we really talked about outdoor living and what that means, not necessarily just about what we do, the cool things that we've done on some of these homes, but what it means to you and what it could mean to you, and opening up people's eyes to what outdoor living actually means. So the next guest we had there rolling into April was John Sauerland from Moen. And John and I have worked together. John and Wheelan Builders have worked together since 2010. And we described that relationship on how it got started. And basically what it was the other supplier pissed me off so bad. And I was like, hey, and I started talking to John, and I realized what another life there was out there in plumbing fixtures. I mean, if Moen, when we were going into a look at a new neighborhood, Moen will do all of the surrounding statistics for the area. They want to help you succeed. John is always here, checking things out and calling and making sure that we have all the technology. Just a super guy. And so we talked about the kitchen and bath show and the trends that were happening out there. And we talked about John's experience when he worked for Prasco, which is a company that the people who own that company we've done some work for, and I really thought that was really neat to find out that history. One of the coolest things I tell everybody about the podcast when I'm interviewing somebody on this show is I learn so much about them. I learn about their history. I learn about where they've been and where they came from, and this connectivity that we have somewhere down the line. And it was really neat. Even though I've known John all these years, I learned more about him. So Moen is our plumbing fixture supplier, manufacturer, and John represents them, and he does just a fantastic job. Our next guest was, and I was really surprised that he did it, but it was David Dries from the Dries Company. And I have a huge admiration. And I mean, you have another builder on your show, and this is not the first time this has happened. It's probably the fourth or fifth time that we've had another builder on the show, but this is a local guy. They're a huge company, but they're still privately owned. And David is the CEO, the president of the company, and he takes time out of his day to come up here and do this podcast with us. David is also a minority, I guess you call it, owner of the Cincinnati Reds. So we got to hear about that. But we got to hear about he's a big family business. So his dad, his grandpa, his sister, the kids, other people, and there's so many people that are involved in this business, and they all get along really, really good. But I loved hearing how their inspirations happen, how their history of their company formed, and the direction that they're headed, and just listen to him. I was disappointed because I ran into him at the ball game a couple of weeks later, and we were talking, and I said, how did you think the podcast turned out? And he goes, I didn't listen to it. I hate listening to my voice on the radio or somewhere else. And I was like, oh man. So I made sure that everybody else in the world listened to it besides him, so they could go up and talk to him about it. But I was really, really surprised and grateful that David came up and did this with us. So that was really, really neat to hear from the Dries company and how they operate. So our next guest was Michael Hines, and Michael is a huge realtor here in Southwest Ohio. He hustles, and him and his dad and his brother and his mom, the brothers and his mom, have a gig. I mean, and I think their gig is just working hard. But they're land people. They're constantly on the lookout. They provide more than just a realtor service. They provide services to people where they go out and find land. They carry them on all the way. Right now, we have 2 deals with Michael. He's got a listing for us, and we also have another deal that we're working on with a customer with him. And so he's just a salt of the earth person. When you start to meet with him and talk with him, I got to learn about him personally. Again, I've known this guy for years. I've known his dad for even longer, and I learned things about him that I just didn't know about. So we talked about a number of different things, but really, it was really kind of fun to walk away from that conversation, learning more about him and his wife and his mom and dad and the rest of his family. So our next episode, and we are in May at this point, our next episode was the energy efficiency of homes. And when we talk about energy efficiency, energy efficiency is, I always talk to people about not necessarily the materials that you're using, but it's the labor that is, that drives everything. So it doesn't do you any good to have this super high efficient, excellent performance window, and then have some guy come out there and install it who has no idea what they're doing and screws it all up. The efficiency goes out the window. So same thing with insulation. If you are using great insulation and you're bragging about your house as being well insulated, but you pay a company on the cheap to go out there and just kind of poke it in there and not really pay attention to the details. And I'm talking about details like, how your corners are framed and how you insulate that corner, how you insulate the last joist space in the basement, and how you insulate behind outlets, and how you insulate around doors and windows, and all of these things are about the performance, but there's so much more to it. When we started getting into LEED performance houses, that was unbelievable to learn about what some of it, a lot of it's kind of bullshit, but I mean, but there's so many other things that you can drive that have a science behind it that makes sense to me. And now we're really talking about energy efficiency, and it's really, really neat. So I hope that was an informative episode. I always want to go back to our customers and get utility bills and understand what their utility bills look like compared to other homes. But it's so difficult. I started to do it last year because we built basically a LEED efficient house up in Mainville, but the guy didn't want to get it LEED certified. And I sent him a message and I said, hey, would you please send me your utility bills? Well, he sent me the usage and didn't send me I wanted to see the dollars. I have another customer where we did all spray foam insulation, 2x6 walls all over the place. And we did geothermal system in there, and we did a few other things to the house, but it didn't have a finished basement. And they sent me their utility bills super low, really cool, big 3,600 square foot ranch. But how do you compare that to a 2-story that doesn't have geothermal? And how do you compare that to another ranch that has a finished basement, and so on and so forth? It really makes it difficult. But I think we could probably see, he was probably right sending me the usage numbers, because then you could see that what the actual usage is. I think more people were interested in the dollars than the usage. But the energy efficiency thing was big, and it still is. It's always concerning for people, and we want them. And I think that when they come to Wheeland Builders to build a house, they expect a certain level of it. I mean, you want to have the conversation, but there shouldn't be a lot of questions saying, now, are you going to make this house energy efficient? These houses should be energy efficient. You would have that level of expectation. And we get into June, we rolled into June, we talked about custom home maintenance, and different things you have to do around the house. And this was I just, there's so many dumb things that we know that we need to do that we don't do. And custom home maintenance in general are things that you should do. Things like even your garage door should be serviced once a year. Your furnace should definitely be furnace and air conditioner once or twice a year. Even your dishwasher needs to have a certain amount of filters and things changed. Your refrigerator has filters to change on it. All these different things have a maintenance requirement on it. And to own a house, if you have to understand that this is a responsibility, and if you want it to last, you want to make sure that it's going to last, and you do this by trusting the professionals to come out and service it. The people who worked on the house necessarily. I do believe that some people who are in the service industry, they aren't straight up all the time. But the people, we're lining you up with these people and saying, hey, you have to do these things in order to make sure that things are going to operate efficiently. So I hope you guys got a lot out of that. The next episode was talking about cost overruns and understanding what they are and why they happen. And this is a conversation I tell people all the time when we're building a house. I love change orders. And the reason I love change orders is because you're getting what you want. We're not signing a change order because we had a cost overrun. It was random. We're signing a change order because people came back and said, hey, we would like to do this and we would like to do that. And I'm like, this is great. Sign a change order. Here we go. This is what it cost and this is what you're going to get. And everybody's happy. And so that's a really good thing. But it also increases the price of the house most of the time. Sometimes it decreases the price of the house. We have a customer right now whose goal in life is to make sure that every change order is a negative amount, and it's working for him. But in other terms, cost overruns. Coming up out of the ground, a lot of times that's where your variables are at. When you're digging the basement, you got more concrete. Maybe you got, if your basement's out of level, if you got more gravel in that portion, different things are happening, on when you're dealing with nature. Everything else kind of gets into a fixed area, but when you start adding things that you wanted, then that's when the cost overruns really take over. Our next guest coming into July was Fred Rakowski, and he is my business coach and has been for many years. And we kind of go in spurts. He's not a coach every single day. I don't go to practice with him and all those things. There's times that'll pop up and I'll be like, hey, can we start up again? And he has always been super flexible for that. And I'm not sure if that's how he operates with everybody, but it's certainly how he's done it with me. And I've been grateful for it. And I've learned so much about running businesses. One of the things I tell everybody is when I first got into this business with my mom and dad, it was more family than it was employees. And now it's more employees than it is family. So you have to have job descriptions. You have to have reviews. You have to, which I'm not good at, but you have to have all these different things that happen within the company to operate like a company. We have to have standard operating procedures. We have to have things put in place of expectations. I can't get pissed off at somebody because they didn't do it the way I wanted them to do it, but I never told them how to do it or how I thought it was going to go. There's so many different things that I've learned from Fred that I get so excited about. And if you go back and listen to this podcast, listening to Fred say something makes me want to do whatever he says. And because he's always like, well, here's what you have to go say. I'm like, yeah, when you say it, everybody wants to do it. When I say it, nobody cares. But it's really true. I mean, he just is an excellent person, and I'm grateful for everything that we've done. Also, in that second episode of July, there was we talked a lot about us and the family being at the county fair, which I just talked about checking in there earlier. But we talked about our experience and the things that we do together, the four of us as a family, and how we celebrate that and how we try and make the most of all of those times. But the fair was a catalyst and a conduit for this, and we just enjoyed every second of it. And so I'm hoping that happens again this year. But this is what we discussed in this episode. And if you go back and listen to it, if not, you're going to hear about it again this year because we're going to do it all again this year. Hopefully, I am as positive this year in July as I was last year. But yeah, it was a really good show to reflect on what it meant to me. And the next episode, we were rolling into August. We had both Heather and Jill from Curated, and Curated is a furniture company in Loveland, Ohio. And they came out, they supplied all the furniture, the majority of the furniture for our Homerama home to be in the show. But one thing that happened with these guys is they came into this house and they were like, we need more. This needs more. This needs more. Now they're not even getting paid, and they're doing this because they really care about it. They made a commitment to it. They are two excellent people who just, man, they work hard and they do a great job at what they're doing, but they also put their best foot forward, and they can look around. I love people that look around and go, this needs to be done, or this needs a little extra, or this needs something else. And they're on the team, they're wanting to do better. And not necessarily for them. It's for the house. It's for Wheeling Builders. It's for whatever. And I was super grateful for that. But just to be able to come in here and do this podcast with us, and we rolled through that thing. And when I got done, I was like, man, I've never met you guys before. At that point, I'd never met them before. And we hit it off, and I was just grateful for them at that point. But then we also went through the show later on after that, and I got to know them better, and I got to see their efforts, and I was just really, really impressed by them. So that was fun. Thank you again for being here from Curated. Go out and visit them in Loveland, Ohio, and buy furniture from them, especially right now because they're all Christmased out. And I've had a lot of people that have been down there. My mom and dad went down there and said it's just unbelievable inside their showroom. Our next episode, our next guest was none other than Mark Durkers, Mark Joseph Durkers from Mark Durkers Architecture. Mark is a huge part of our team here at Wheeling Builders, and he has been for a long time. He's part of our milestones. He's part of our sales pitch. He's part of everything that we do because he is excellent at what he does. And I tell people this all the time. Every time we build one of Mark's houses that he drew, it's the first time that house has ever been built. It's the first time it's ever been drawn. It's fresh. It's brand new. He draws it by hand and to scale with furniture scaled into the plan at first. And this is that part where we call it a milestone. This is where our people, when we are reviewing this with them, get very emotional. This is the first time they've ever seen the floor plan, first time they've ever seen the elevation. Mark's got a couple of personal family things that he does to the painting, like Bob Ross, but it's a little bit more important than that. And not a lot of people know that story. And it's just the whole thing. It wraps up like what I want to do, what my vision is for this business, where you're bringing all the heart and soul to that meeting, and people cry. They're amazed at how much he listened to them. They're amazed at how he put it together. And I feel like the same way. So it was funny. Mark was super nervous coming into this thing, and I learned more about him, got to know so much more about him throughout the podcast. But it, I think the other thing it did is he realized that he's part of something here at Wheeling Builders, and I wanted to make sure that he knew that too. Very, very important part of our team and our operation of how we do things. So that was Mark Durkers. Really, really cool. In September, we rolled into we had Kelly Wynn and Robin Hauser, our very own, here on the show, and we talked about Homerama. We talked about the processes, and they both kind of went back and forth on what they do, what their visions are, how they line things up, how we arrive at certain decisions. And it was really neat to even, Robin's been here 11 years. I've known Kelly for a lot, longer, as long, if not longer than that. And to watch these two and their minds start rolling through what we do, this is a huge part of our operation. Again, both of what they do and makes our customer experience so much better and very detailed, and makes the build better for us within the company. So it was really neat to listen to those guys. And then the next episode in September there was Michelle Sloan. Michelle is a real estate agent, and she also has her own radio show on 55 KRC here in Cincinnati. Has been there for a long time, or had that show for a long time. And Michelle and I met each other on a deal that we did for some people who owned a Harley Davidson dealership here in Southwest Ohio. Man, I don't know what year that was. That it had to have been in a recession, because I remember the house that we went through, the model home that we went through, was the house that those folks built. And so we would have still been in neighborhoods with a model home there. And that was in 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there. And she was their realtor, and I was really impressed by listening to what she had to say. So we kind of became buddies. Her husband is a radio personality here. And I say Southwest Ohio just because he's on 700 WLW, but 700 WLW, I think, is listened to in Russia. So he's a radio personality in the world. And Scott Sloan. So it was kind of funny to hear stories about Scott. But Michelle is just an excellent realtor, good person. And I was really, again, somebody else I've known for a while who's came on the show, and you learn more about him. So it was really, really neat. Our next, rolling into October, our next guest was Alex Riemann from Custom Distributors. And Custom Distributors is our appliance dealer where we do all of our appliance work. We get all of our appliances from this company, and they are a family owned and operated company. That family owned and operated just means that you're a little bit more nuts than everybody else to be able to do that crap. But to see Alex in the company and being on the team and have his heart and soul into it, he's not a spoon-fed kid. He's not taking advantage of it. He wasn't given anything, and I can relate to this. And I think that most people look at this kind of situation and they're like, oh yeah, they stupid ass comments. But Alex is a hard worker and does a great job. He is teammates. I say teammates, it's Custom Distributors with Rob Saunders, and Rob has been our salesperson for a long time. So between the two of those guys, they are our go-to at Custom Distributors for all of our appliances, and they kick butt, and they just do. We had this conversation with Alex, and we have this conversation. We continue to have this conversation with people throughout the year, is that when we have customers go and talk to them, I don't want them to say, you want this refrigerator? Hey, okay, I'll write it down. We don't want that. I don't want them. And I don't know why I always do that voice. Like, it's stupid, because I guess that's the way I talk. But it's important for our customers to go over there and have the experience, to understand that Alex and Rob know what designing a kitchen means. They know how it's going to perform. They want to learn more about how you want it to perform. And then they want to kind of lead you into a package of appliances, or they want to lead you into where you're heading them, where you're asking them to take them. And so it's really, really neat to see those guys and how they operate. And I encourage you to go over there and visit their showrooms, probably one of the largest appliance showrooms in the state of Ohio, if not Southwest Ohio. But really, really good people. And again, I'm grateful for Alex coming on to the show. Our next guest was Brian Kyle, one of Lebanon's own. And so that's the town that we live in. And Brian and I started doing business again. I think it was in a recession. And I think that we had another fireplace supplier that just, man, I think it was their goal to piss us off every time I got on the phone with them. And I was never so excited to find Brian and start doing business with him. So we've been to battle. We've been through things, and we've been up and down and on different sides of it. But we've always stuck together, always been teammates here. And Brian does a fabulous job. And again, we talked about how when our customers come up there, it's not like pick one out and we'll sell it to you. It's the experience. It's what are you trying to do? It's looking at the room size. It's looking at the decor of the room. It's looking at all these different things that where you're headed with the direction of your home in order to be able to pick your fireplace out. And Brian and his team are experts up there. It wasn't until I don't know how many years of working with him that I realized that he owns the joint. And so that was really neat to hear. And then, of course, I run into him at different events in town in Lebanon, and we kind of got to be buddies. So super people, Dayton Fireplace and Brian Kyle, thank you guys for all the things you've done and do with us. And it's really neat to be able to have that relationship. The next episode rolling into November was custom built-ins and maximizing the space. I feel like I half-assed this episode because we were putting it together. I talked about it. We've been on YouTube, so you can kind of see it, and maybe not everybody was familiar with that. And we talked about built-ins, which is really, really cool. A lot of neat things that we do, but I didn't put my best foot forward, so I apologize for that. But if you want to go back and look at it on YouTube, you can see the pictures. Go to our website, and you can see the pictures of all the cool built-ins that we do. But then at the end of November there, our next guest was Lighting FX. Todd McKinley and Lisa Abraham, and Lisa's been our sales rep for as long as I can remember, and Todd has always owned Lighting FX. And again, we sat here, even after the episode was over, we sat here and talked for a little while and just got to know each other better. And I haven't spent that much time with Todd or Lisa. I mean, I've known Lisa for a long time, but and we've done a lot of business together, but just never really sat down and just caught up with each other personally and figured out where they came from and all these things. So that was really neat to find out on this episode. But it was also cool to understand, and let's find a theme here, but Lisa is not wanting to just sell you a light fixture when you come over there with Wheel and Builders. She is wanting to understand where your head is at and what the decor is. And one of the neat things that she said was the fifth wall, the ceiling is the fifth wall, because you have to understand the lighting effects of the light fixtures and how that lights up a room. Again, no pun intended, or pun intended, but and how it's not just the look of the fixture, but how the light shines off of the light fixture and what it creates inside the room. So that was really neat to hear all those experiences and the direction they want to head with our customers when we feel safe, having our customers go over and meet with Lisa. But it's also really cool to hear how Todd got started in the business and how he operates that business over there with everybody and takes care of his team. So thank you again, guys, for taking time out of your day to be here. Our last episode here of the year, our last episode leading up to this one was with Florence and Karen from House Trends Magazine. And House Trends Magazine is the magazine that puts on our plan book for Homerama. But they are also, they've been in business for 25 years. They've been putting magazines out there for 25 years. And they are, if you want to know what's happening and the cool stuff for homes in Southwest Ohio, you're talking about House Trends. And these guys, just to hear, when we were talking to Karen about getting pictures of these houses, and she said, "Hey, I don't want you to finish a house and then send me a picture." She goes, "I don't want to see sod lines and brand new bushes and all that stuff. I want to see it a year and a half from now. I want to see in the wintertime. I don't want to be sending out winter pictures. And in the summertime, I don't want to be sending out winter pictures. I want summertime happiness pictures." You can do festive holiday pictures, but she really has her stuff together and thinking about things that I don't necessarily think about, just details. And when you see a detail-oriented person, when I see a detail-oriented person, I'm like, man, I have a mass respect for them because they have a vision and they have a thought in their mind about where they're headed, and that's so important. And the other important thing about that is making sure that people around you understand that direction and that vision. Because if they're not on the board, if they're not on the boat, then you got to kick them off. But they do a great job, and I've never met either one of these people until that day doing the podcast. So it was really neat to be able to sit down with them and learn more about those guys and what they do, and learn more about the magazine. So that was really neat. And then of course now today we're doing the year in review. So that was it, man. That was our second year. We've never missed an episode of airing throughout the last 2 years. And we have over 4,000 followers now, which is really neat. I remember when we didn't even have one. And so we've got some things planned for this year. For 2025, and some things to expect. Of course, some really, really cool guests. We've got some people lined up. We've got a couple homeowners lined up. We've got some my cousin Johnny. I'm hoping that I can convince him to come on. He's a commercial builder. We'll hopefully have the Reds again. But we're going to talk about some things. What makes you a good customer? What makes you a horrible customer to build a house? We can talk through that. We've got experience, and I'm not going to be talking about any one individual person. I'm going to be talking about in general what I've talked to people across the United States about. We are going to talk about a number of different things from our Builder 20 group. And I'm hoping also to get my mom on here. She doesn't know this, but we will talk about this and hear about my mom's experience in the business, in the family, what it was like to do that balance and her years coming through. I can't tell you how many times Leanne still calls her today and says, "Hey, we built this, you guys built this house back in this day, and you remember how much it cost?" And she remembers the people's names and the job numbers. And so it's really neat, but, hear from her about what it looked like. So a lot of different things that we're going to talk about. The other thing that we are going to try and do is we are updating our system here for the podcast, our equipment and everything. And I'd like to try and do some video, and instead of just listening to it, you guys can watch it also. And I think that would be kind of fun because seeing people's reactions and seeing what we do here in the podcast room would maybe make it more entertaining. I don't know. But we're going to try it. Why not? So those are some really cool things we have coming up for 2025. I just want to say once again, everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Can't wait to talk to you next year. Can't wait for you to tune in. And as always, don't forget that we drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And if you want to be on the show, if you have any questions, any comments, I love running into people and say, "Hey," and then they come up to me and they say, "Hi, I listen to the podcast." I'm always surprised, for one. But if they have, hey, you ought to talk to this person, you ought to talk to this person. That's so much fun because it gives us new ideas on what we can do to keep it interesting for people to continue to want to listen. So that's what we have for 2025. And we're going to continue the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at wbdownload@wielandbuilders.com, wbdownload@wielandbuilders.com. And if you want to check us out on our website, check us out at wielandbuilders.com. See all the cool houses that we get. Years ago, when we were having a company powwow, we talked about what our mission should be. And I can't write this down, but it's to continue to build badass houses. And we do really build some badass houses. But what is the definition of a badass house? And we said, it's whatever our customers want. What makes the greatest house in the world? We build specific houses for specific customers. And if we are providing them with what they want, that's the greatest house in the world. So that's what our philosophy is here. Check us out at wielandbuilders.com. Thank you again, everybody, for an entire year of listening in 2024. And I hope that you come back and listen to us again in 2025 here on the WB Download. I'm Jeff Wieland. Thanks again for listening in. Have a great year, everybody.